guys, welcome back to Ironside Ranch. So we came out here to check out the wood pile today because we had the kids out here doing some restacking. So we're standing in our one side of the wood. So we use two sides of the wood pile, right? So I have this side over here and then this side that I'm standing in. This side's over here that I'm standing in is completely empty. And basically what we do is we'll cut for next year, we'll cut it and stack it over here so it has at least a year to 2 years to dry. And then we go over there following year. We'll pull from this side over here. So we're getting ready to start harvesting some wood. We got a little bit behind this last year just because we were so busy in the springtime. But guys, keeping wood on hand especially when you have a wood stove. I mean, you don't know when you're going to break a leg or something that's going to put you out for a couple months. So we always try to keep at least a year's worth of wood on hand. But we try to keep between 2 and 2.5 years worth of wood on hand. This whole area holds about 10 cords of wood, and we generally use about 3 cords in a winter. If it's really long winter, we'll use a touch more than that. Maybe closer to 4 cords. So this is generally between about 2.5 years of wood total for us in this area. We do got to be careful because we got to be able to cycle through the backside over there. So we do have to do some restacking every year because of that, because that backside over there will just decay before it ever actually gets used otherwise. But anyways, I won't go on too much about that, but wood stoves are great. If y'all don't have one, they're a great way to heat your home. So what I want to talk to y'all about is this new article that I just came out from the Western Journal. I'll post it down in the description below. And this is really interesting. We were talking about this 6 months ago, and we've been talking about this all year actually, that the harvest was going to be bad this year. And part of the reason was because we had some late frost down here in the south, which kills a lot of things, guys. When you have a late frost, it kills people that aren't set up to and prepared for it. They have to have these big wind-blowing fans to blow through the orchards and stuff, or you lose the peach harvest. Some blueberry farms are reporting up to 85% loss on blueberries. And so this is a little bit scary because we're now coming time for harvest, and we're seeing that in the southeast there's a massive issue with that frost and not having adequate water in the southwest and actually over on the west coast entirely because of the droughts. And then we had some really late rains this year, a really rainy spring, which caused us to have some problems with like the hay harvest and stuff like that. And so we've exacerbated this issue. So now we have the Western Journal finally catching on to this, saying, hey, the frost at the beginning of the year is now causing problems, and that we're not going to have the harvest that we thought with these fruit harvests. Well, we all knew that. We've been saying that, and anybody that keeps up with this stuff knows that was coming. But they seem to think that they're now just figuring this out, and that they're very smart for doing so. So I find that really interesting. Bottom line is, guys, food next year is going to cost a lot more than it is this year. I bet we're up at least 20%, if not 30% from this year. Just with the price of fertilizer, issues with the drought, issues with the late frost down here. Basically, you got everything coming together all at once, and that's causing some issues for us all. So it is time to prepare for that and not be scared, but be ready to go. And be ready to have some things on hand, having some food on hand, having a year's worth of supply of wood on hand, getting those wood stove parts. We're getting ready. We need to order ours. Actually, we've been talking about it the last couple of days. I keep forgetting to, but we need to order our spare parts for the wood stove. Right? We have a lot of things like that we, as responsible citizens, this isn't prepper craziness. This is just being responsible for your own well-being and your own life. And we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves and to take care of our families. And so we really need to be keeping our eyes out on what's going on. We're seeing fertilizer prices. We're seeing droughts. We're seeing late frost this year. We saw the late frost down south, specifically down in like Brazil, where it killed all the coffee. All these things come back at some point in time, whether it's reflected in just the price of the food at the store or the unavailability of it, I guess, and the lack of supplies. So there'll be stuff that is just too expensive, and there'll be stuff that you just can't find at the store simply because it's not there. And I think this is where people are missing this, is people are just so used to this there's this normalcy bias. And I forget, my dad was talking about this to me the other day, and there's a psychological term for it. I don't remember now what it is, but basically we get in this comfort zone because things have been normal for so long, we think it can't happen to us. And that's a very foolish thing for us to do as a society, because we can see that these things happen through every society, and these things are on cycles. And so to just because it hasn't happened in a long time to any substantial level, right? 2008 was about the worst that we've had. Well, 2008 was 15 years ago, right? So well, 14 years, I got it, yeah. But around 15 years ago, and longer ago than that when it actually started. And even that one, people were okay. We haven't truly had really bad times since like World War II and the Great Depression. And so this normalcy bias is there, and it is really, really set in to where people just don't feel like this can happen to them. And we all know we run a property inspection business. We're in people's houses all the time, and we see what they have in their pantries and in their garages, and see what they have stored in there. And I know some people have said, well, they could just be moving and storing all their stuff. It's like, yeah, that could be true. But you got to realize we go into a lot of tenant-occupied houses. We've gone into several apartment complexes this month, and every apartment complex that we go into, we see that these people have basically 2-3 days worth of food on hand at the most. And I would venture at least half of the apartments that I went into, they maybe have 1 day of food on hand. The rest of their house is just condiments. And unless they're going to be eating soy sauce, I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening and a world of hurt. So all we can do is we can prepare ourselves and our families, get as many people ready so that, because it's one less person that we have to worry about if people are ready, and get as many people ready as possible. And we just need to realize that the majority of people do not think like you're thinking. They do not think like I'm thinking. They do not think ahead to see that these issues are actual real issues. And I was having a conversation with my dad, and I've been telling my mom for 6 months to be ready for the food prices next year. And she never mentioned anything to my dad. And sure enough, I was having this conversation with my dad, and he said, I think food prices are going to be real bad next year. And I was like, I've been yelling at Mom this whole time, telling her that the food prices are going to be astronomical next year. And my dad, he basically, we both kind of looked at each other and were like, yeah, we got the confirmation we needed. We both came to that conclusion without one another that food prices are going to be pretty unreal next year. And my dad is not a worrier at all. That's what's kind of interesting about it. So, but he is like, we got to get some food. So guys, I just want you to take that into consideration, that this stuff is getting worse. We're seeing issues from the beginning of the year now finally being reported. We're seeing crop harvest failures. We're seeing continuation of this drought. This drought is getting worse, right? So Economic Ninja and Chris Taylor over at Financial Fitness, they both have been talking about that town, Las Vegas, New Mexico, that little town, not Las Vegas, Nevada, but the little town, Las Vegas, New Mexico, that was running out of water. And they said that they had 50 or 60 days left. Well, here we are several weeks later, and now the town council is reporting they got 30 days of water left. It's turning into Flint, Michigan. So, and it's a contamination issue for them, and I think a drought issue too. But the bottom line is that this is happening, whether we want to believe it or not, and whether that normalcy bias is there. And there's part of you that might be thinking, hey, it hasn't actually happened yet, so maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this isn't actually going to happen. It is going to happen. There's no question about about the fact that it's going to happen. It's an if question, or a when question, not an if question. But when I say it's a when question, I'm not saying it's going to happen over the next 100 years. We're talking about, I would put dollars to donuts that this stuff gets real bad over the next 24 months. But beyond that, you can almost guarantee it's going to happen within the next 5 years. So keep that in mind, guys. This is not the National Geographic Doomsday Preppers thing. This is happening, and this is not preparing for 35 years for a solar flare that's going to knock out the grid system worldwide. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that we see the making of right now. We see all the signs, all the indicators, and all the events corresponding with what's coming. The bottom line is, if there's no rain, there's no food. If there's late frost, it kills parts of the food. If fertilizer prices are really high, it exacerbates the food prices and lowers the production, right? The actual amount of food on the market. So there's a net calorie that is needed for Americans to consume or for people worldwide to consume. And when we can't make that, that's where people start having problems. That's where we start getting people starving. That's where we start getting people that start robbing other people for cans of peaches instead of the money in their wallet, right? Like the Weimar Germany, we saw the fall of Venezuela, right? So we see this stuff happening, and we're not going on to whether it's socialism or whatever caused that. We see these events that we can link to what's going to happen in the future. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything has happened in the past. All these food shortages have happened before. It's just a cycle, and it's part of life. It's part of dealing with these things. So take a little bit of responsibility for yourself and your family. Start putting back some food now. Start getting your water situation sorted out, right? So we've got our well going in, our water purification. Make sure that you've got some handle on that. If you're living in a subdivision, you've got a little bit of harder time with water, but it doesn't alleviate you of the responsibility to be prepared for water shortages and water issues and water quality issues. It's very easy to put filters under your sink. It's very easy to store 55-gallon barrels of water in your garage so that you can get through a period of time, 30 days of not having any water. So, guys, with that, I'll leave you and I'll quit the rant into you about this. I'll post a link to this article in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure and like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see y'all tomorrow.